I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with Dr. Susan Campbell and Dr. John Gray to talk about their new book, 5-Minute Relationship Repair. I hope you'll enjoy the interview. You titled the book 5-Minute Relationship Repair. Is that for real? Can you really repair things in 5 minutes?
Yeah, in fact, you have to. I mean, the rule of thumb is good repair is quick, it's fast, it's simple. Most people don't know it. Most people think you get into these long discussions where you're trying to explain things, you're trying to justify things, making excuses, maybe getting into debates, and that's going to solve it, prove who's right. That's all disreparative. Good repair is very quick. It's just a simple set of words. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. We're good the way we are. You're great the way you are. It's getting to the real essence of what just got stirred up.
And we give people a script so they don't run off the tracks and start over-explaining and defending, but really speak from their vulnerable feelings and needs over and over. You know, what are your feelings? What are your needs? And we show people how to get in touch with the deeper feelings and needs
What bubbles up from underneath?
that really need to be heard by their partner if they're going to get their needs met.
All right. So, John, why do people get triggered? What happens?
Well, there's a little bit of brain science behind it. It's like there are two brains. There's our higher brain that knows how to talk in a loving way, because that's where all that takes place in the brain. And then there's a more primitive brain inside that has an alarm system, and it's a survival threat alarm. And somehow that gets thrown into a state of being triggered by things people say to each other inadvertently. Usually it's a misinterpretation, it's a sudden voice tone or gesture that sets off the other person's alarm. And now instead of seeing each other and acting like friends, suddenly they're scaring each other's alarms into thinking they're foes. In a nutshell, that's all it is. It's a case of mistaken identity that nobody realizes.
All right. And Susan, how can people learn to notice when they are triggered?
Well, we give couples and individuals too in the book exercises to begin to know the early warning signals of when you're triggered, like you're making fists, or your face gets hot, or your breathing gets shallow or rapid. So body sensations, tension, also feelings like anger or thoughts like judgment, like that person is so idiotic. I mean, judgments will be signs that you're triggered. Whenever you start labeling or judging somebody, you're actually probably in a fear state, which is what triggering is. It's a fear state. And the last thing we help people notice is this kind of reactive stories that go on in their minds, like, I can't win with this person. He's always so needy. She's always so over-explaining, you know, those kind of things. Just stories that are actually self-triggering. And so we help people notice those so that they can stop doing that and get present.
John, what should a person do or not do if they notice that they are triggered?
Basically stop the presses, to pause, to not just keep going forward, because things will never work out well once this part of the brain is taking over the conversation. It's like the brain stem, that primitive lizard brain, is running the conversation. It never goes well. So pausing, calming, having some kind of signal, even that both people agree on. Let's just pause for a moment. And then find a way to calm. You know, that old thing about count to 10, take a breath. We have a lot of tools in the book around how to pause and calm. There's an agreement that people come into so they act like a team to catch these triggering events, pause and calm. And then the most important thing is to repair, because that's what starts rewiring the relationship in each other's brains to operate more in the safety zone and the secure zone rather than continuing to co-trigger in the future. So that repair piece is very important, and it gets overlooked. People try to avoid it, brush it under the carpet, think it'll just go away.
John, what should a couple do if they find themselves having the same fight over and over?
Well, the joke we have is it's always the same fight. Pretty much when I work with a couple, you can go back to their second or third date and they started having this fight, only they didn't realize it, and it's the same thing again and again. There's some pattern underneath it It's not the content issue. Content issues, money, issues over sex, the kids, the mess around the house, time. It's not those issues that are the problem. Mm-hmm. It's that they stir up another pattern underneath them of seemingly core needs not being met. Yeah. Needs to feel accepted, needs to feel understood, to feel connected with each other. But nobody's seeing that. And so our book is about helping people see what's the underlying cycle they get into again and again and again. How do you identify it? What are the pieces of it? Did you realize this is what's actually going on in your partner? Nobody ever did. They could be together for 20, 30, 40 years. They never knew what the other person was upset about or how to repair it. Mm-hmm. That's what the book's all about.
Simple things like what the real fight might be about is, I'm afraid I don't matter to you, or I'm afraid I'm not respected by you. These kind of things. And when we teach people to reveal those fears to each other, then they can reassure each other, and that stops that same fight.
In fact, they get excited once they realize what's really going on with the brain science of it, of this cycle, that there was really something going on in their partner they could easily repair. They get excited to see, well, the cycle's our enemy, not each other. Yeah. We're teammates to overcome this thing. We can do it. Here's our tools. We pause. We have a pause agreement that we have in the book. We calm. We use some of these self-calming and co-calming tools. And this is how we're going to repair it. And you repair it each and every time. It's like the road to happily ever after has a lot of bumps. Couples walking along hand in hand, hopefully, but somebody gets a pebble in their shoe. Well, how do you stop and shake that out together? Because if you don't, then pretty soon it's like you're walking along, there's rocks in your shoe, because they all kind of stick together. And then boulders. This is about keeping it all very simple, very quick, and repair it as you go. And then there's nothing to drag along. No baggage. Nothing. Yeah.
And Susan, you've touched on this throughout the interview a little bit, but why is it that we often feel afraid to speak honestly to the ones we love the most?
Well, the stakes are higher the more you love and depend on somebody. And so there is that fear of loss, a fear that there's going to be some separation between you and, we call it the one I depend on. And so most people realize on some level that they don't have the necessary skills to be vulnerably honest in a way that won't threaten their partner. What a lot of people think of as honesty is sharing your judgments or your opinions.
Brutal honesty.
Yeah, what we're talking about, the authentic vulnerability that we're teaching couples has to do with, as I've said before, I want everybody to get this, sharing your feelings. I feel hurt. I feel sad. I need reassurance that I matter to you. Those kind of things will bond the person to you. That's the language of connection rather than the language of like control and defense.
It's like the language of lasting love, you could call it. And generally we didn't learn that language by seeing others do it in childhood. That's where we learned our language patterns, especially our emotional patterns of languaging, whether that's verbal or nonverbal. So this is literally re-educating, rewiring the brain to speak this much simpler language that's really beautiful and effective in terms of lasting happiness and love.
What's the most important thing that couples who are going through a challenging time need to know?
It's really important to remember that differences are normal, triggers are normal, and they can actually be a portal into deeper self-understanding and healing. When couples go through this repair process together, they get to know each other on a much deeper level. And when they pause and calm and look inward at the source of their triggers, they come up with needs and feelings that maybe they've never expressed to their partner in such a vulnerable, open-hearted way. So don't be afraid if you get triggered or if you get in one of these vicious cycles. There's a way out by just knowing that that's normal. There's tools to get to the deeper levels of what you're really trying to say to your partner. And so, don't give up until you've tried 5-minute relationship repair.